Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Executive Cabinet meeting of Chorley Council. We move on to first item, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Ruth?
Councillor Margaret France, thanks, Chair.
And we've got Councillor Peter Wilson on Teams and not with us, although he has lots of reports to present, so it will feel like he's in the room. The first item of proper business is the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of January. Does somebody want to move those? Thank you, Councillor Morwood. Second those? Councillor Lowe. All those in favour, please show. Excellent. Right, that's carried. Are there any declarations of interest I need to know about? No. Any public questions, Ruth?
None, Chair, thank you.
And we move on to item 4, which is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee report on recruitment and staff retention. I was expecting Councillor Riggott to be in attendance. Is he? No.
Councillor Beach is on Teams.
I do know that Councillor Beach is on Teams. Councillor Murray, do you want to?
If Councillor Riggott is supposed to be presenting it, maybe we should defer it to the next meeting.
I'm fine with that proposal. Does anyone want to second that proposal? All those in favour, please show. Excellent. Next item of business is item 5. Councillor Wilson, the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report.
Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me clearly?
Very clearly. Keep going.
That's perfect. Apologies for not being with you, but I've been slightly delayed due to some busy work being done this week. The item in front of us is the third quarter budget report, and we seem to be going on a little journey here, because in the first quarter we reported an overspend of about £750,000, and then in the second quarter that came down slightly, and now we seem to have gone back to where we were. But these are cost projections, as it says in the report, and they can change. And again, we'll see where we get in terms of the year end. But as you can see, Chair, from page 55 onwards, it's there are common themes, as we know, that have forced our budgets to be put under pressure, such as the utility costs, which we've reported on before, and of course the increase in staff salaries, again, which as a consequence of the economic climate with the increases in inflation that we've experienced over the last couple of years, thankfully now coming back down. But as you can see from this report, there are those issues in there, and they do impact each directorate. But there are also a lot of other factors that all contribute to that projected overspend that we just mentioned. And therefore, it's impossible to come to this meeting and say the reason that £780,000 overspend exists is because of one or two particular factors, which are influencing a particular directorate or the council as a whole. As you can see from the report, it is broken down by directorate. So we can see, for example, taking property there, significant overspend. But as we go down the list, we can see there's a number of factors kicking in. One of the significant factors is utility costs, but another one is the maintenance. Again, some of that has been planned, but most of that I think has been reactive, and therefore that's a cost that's higher than where we projected at the start of the year. And you can see smaller items then further down, such as bad debts and slight reductions in income. On other directorates, such as community and leisure, we can see actually a small underspend, which is obviously great and good for the council. But again, moving perhaps to those where there are more significant overspends, we can see there in policy and governance. Again, a range of issues there, but utilities being probably one of the key issues there, as well as income that we're hoping to generate from events and so on. So they're areas that give us a focus for going forward in this year's programme of events. And then on the major projects, again, where the next significant overspend lies, we can see there again, there's no one factor in the major projects, but as we go through each of our projects, Market Walk or the Primrose Retirement, Strawberry Meadows, for different reasons, there are small amounts which all accumulate to that sort of bigger picture. So it's not a question of saying, therefore, there's no problems, but it is a question of saying the problem is not easy to identify or solve in one go. So it's a question of making sure that we have the right means to forecast, and then actually obviously hopefully address some of those overspends. But again, in other areas there are some significant underspends as well. So that's the picture, Chair. How does that affect as well? What it means, of course, is that we look to, as it says on page 62, we look at the reserves. We can see there that we've got movement from the earmark reserves there of £500,000, and then that puts us in a position where the general balance is about 3.9, and we did always commit to 4 billion. So obviously we want to see that brought back to that level, but that's where it actually leaves us in terms of balances. So we're not too far off what our target there. And then we can see further down in the earmark reserves, we have just over £8 million. So that's the state of the finances in terms of the impact on the reserves. And I'm happy to take any questions, or there might be questions that perhaps affect individual directorates where other cabinet members may be able to assist as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any questions on any of that report from anybody? No. Again, I think this was signposted in previous reports and previous quarters. So, as Peter said, it's a moving target. We have the council's budget meeting next week for the coming year. In a way, this is a wash up of what's happened in the last year. So, I think we've rehearsed a number of these things a number of times. So, members no doubt are well aware of all the impacts, and we're expecting something like this. No questions? Right. In that case, the proposal is as detailed on the recommendations in paragraphs 2 and 3. Peter Wilson has proposed those. Can somebody second those, please? Mr. Murray. All those in favour, please show. Excellent. Good stuff. Right. We then move on, Councillor Wilson, to the capital and balance sheet monitoring report.
Thanks, Alistair. Yes, so the capital report firstly tells us since the last monitoring report.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Peter, carry on.
Okay, sorry. So since the last monitoring reports, we've seen an increase of 6.7 million in the capital programme, and on page 76 you see the table 1 that highlights where those changes have occurred, or why those changes have occurred rather. And you can see the main issue there is the Woodlands development site, which of course we considered as a council only a few months ago. And then there are other items there, such as the Exton Villa and King George V playing field, in terms of the work on the footpath and landscaping, which is set aside from the work on the new changing rooms. So they're the main changes in the programme. In terms of what's been reprofiled and slippage, that the table 2 on page 77, we can see sort of about £3.7 million there of works that we've allocated in the programme have been moved, given that obviously that work's not taken place. Or for other reasons, we've put paused those programmes. So they slip back. It does then give details in the report on pages 77 and 78 about those particular schemes, which some of them are, well, most of them are well known to members. They have been there for a little while. In terms of our borrowing costs, we can see over on page 79 that actually the borrowing costs are slightly down on the projection, and you can see how that splits on this second table between short-term and long-term borrowing. Again, I think we've said this in the past. Given the interest rates as they are, we have ensured that borrowing we're taking out now is done on a short-term basis for obvious reasons. If those rates come down and more favourable, then we can switch back to longer-term policy of borrowing. And then finally, in terms of the collection of council tax and business rates, you can see there the position at 31st of December 23 compared to the previous year. You see there in council tax, perhaps the outstanding balance is just slightly down, but of course that flips on business rates, where it's slightly better than where we were. So all in all, we're not too far off track in terms of our what we expected to collect and where the outstanding balance lies. And that's it for the capital report, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Are there any questions on specific items raised in that capital report? Councillor Howarth.
That it needs to be mentioned that within the context of the world we live in and the reports coming from other councils. What an achievement for the people involved with the finances in this organisation have actually produced this report. I think it's a real achievement that we can have 8 million in overall reserves and 3.9 million in the general reserve. If you bear in mind, and in my area, we've invested or gained investment in 2 major projects up to 30 million in recent years. That is exceptional. Places like Birmingham are having to sell assets to balance the books. We're actually investing. In addition to that, in housing, we've got 2 million set aside for further investment in social housing. Taken together, including the 40 million invested or to be invested in the town centre, of which we've received government support of 20 million. It's got to be very positive that we're moving, we're investing and keeping the capital situation in good order.
Noted. I won't ask Peter to comment, he might get all big-headed about it, but yes, I'm sure it's a lot of hard work from the wider team that's doing that, particularly around the capital, the council tax and business rate collection, because I'm aware across the county rates aren't matching Chorley's, and I know the county council have a concern about that, but I think Chorley's doing its bit to ensure that revenue flows to all parts, even if they're doing the collecting or not doing the collecting. So I think there are a number of indicators in here that are working well, and so thank you for that, Councillor Howard. Any other comments or questions on that report? No. In that case, and I'm just going to make a correction from the previous item as well, because Peter's not actually present in the room, I will propose it, although Peter's obviously done all the work, so thank you for that, Peter. But I will propose that we accept, that we move recommendations at paragraphs 2, 3 and 4 on this report. Anybody second that? Thank you, Councillor Morwood. All those in favour, please show. And just for the record, Ruth, I'll propose the previous one as well, in behalf of Peter, because he's obviously not in the room, and that was what I was being picked out on Councillor Wilson at the start of the last meeting, which confused me. So we've retrospectively put that through, just so we are compliant with Jacob Rees-Mogg's legacy. We'll move on then to item 7, which... No, you are not Jacob Rees-Mogg's legacy, unless there's something else we need to know. Okay. No. The thing about everybody has to be in the room to do things, which I'm sure is different in different places. Right, item 7 is the Chorley Q3 Performance Monitoring Report, and this again is Councillor Wilson. Keep going, Peter.
Thanks, Alistair. For the purpose of this week, Jacob Rees-Mogg's a fine man. Moving on to the performance report. The report tells us that again that we, in terms of our key projects, our corporate strategy projects, our performance is excellent, with 84% rated as green or completed. So again, we're doing very well in terms of the key project delivery at this stage. Likewise, the indicators and delivery service measures again are performing well, and I'll just go through those areas where perhaps we've off target or where the projects are not rated as green. So the first, Chair, is the delivery of the local plan. Probably sound like a broken record on this, but it is been a continual issue now for some time. It is rated as amber. We must do obviously all the relevant stages of the plan and the plan making process, but when working with 2 partners as well, that can be exceptionally challenging. And obviously, you know more, Chair, as the work you do with our partners, but it is about getting them into the same position that we need to be to actually make some progress with the plan. So we do hope to bring that forward and make sure that we deliver that as quickly as possible, knowing, of course, that we still have to go through all the relevant stages of the process. The next project, which is rated as amber, is the improvements council buildings. I think we mentioned this in the last the quarterly report, because we referenced the task group or the working group that's been set up to actually look at bringing forward these works. And it does say in there, obviously, that we have actually put back some of the proposed work on the town hall. But again, we need to take into factors such as what we're doing with our other buildings, whether it's Bengal Street, Union Street, etc. We need to carefully consider what we're doing in terms of the buildings to make sure that when we do invest, to make any changes, they're there for the long term and they fit in with our other objectives in the council's facilities and assets. The next one was the delivery improvements to public transport networks, and again that's currently rated as amber, but as it says there in the action required, this primarily relates to the work on the bus shelters, and it is anticipated that still will be delivered by March. So we are hoping that we will be get those installed, and everything will be back on track soon. In terms of the indicators, again, we just see the bus shelters there. That sort of makes reference to the same point. And then we come to our more well-known measures where we seem to continue to miss, but we are making improvements. And the first is the number of people volunteering or participating in a volunteering opportunity. You can see there we are off target, but it's a significant improvement in where we were, and we are very near to hitting that target. And with the actions that we're taking as a council to promote volunteering and use our credits and other things to actually get people involved, I'm hoping that we'll see that come on track. The percentage of 16, 17-year-olds who are not in education, employment or training, again, very, very challenging in the current climate, but we are, as you can see there, off target, and it's something that we're very keen to try and address. Although obviously significant elements of this are outside of our control as a local authority, but it gives there again in the actions required some of the work that's being done to try and target those needs and actually help them, whether that's getting involved or retraining or getting these sort of skills that they may need for future work. So I'm hoping that again that will bear some fruit perhaps later in the year, but for now we are slightly off target on that, which of course is always a concern. And then the leisure centres, again, members well rehearsed discussions on the leisure centres, but they see the number of visits there is off target. But again, it is an improvement compared to where we were last year. So it's getting better, or you could argue it's getting better, but it's still very, very challenging. And again, the actions we're taking, some of them are listed there, is all about how we increase the number of visitors, but not just by sort of promotion, but also by actually making sure that what's on offer at the leisure centre is more relevant and more useful, and therefore more people want to use it. But again, there's still a large body of work being done there on all our leisure offer across the borough, which again is focused on making sure that we drive those numbers up. And then we have the very, very well rehearsed arguments focusing around the overall employment rates, which we can see has improved from where we were the previous reporting period, but it's still below the regional average. And we can discuss at length, of course, perhaps the reasons why, and maybe some of the indications we got from more studies that have been taking place. But as yet, that still seems to be sort of a slight outlier for me, which I'm not quite sure why Chorley is lower than the regional average. I can understand the regional average being lower than it used to be in a post-COVID era. But as to the full explanation as to why Chorley is slightly off target there, I'm still await to be given more information, perhaps to get to the root cause. And that's all, Chair.
Thank you again, Councillor Wilson. And just on that last indicator, there has been a number of studies, and I've shared that with my own group for definite. The County Council study that has the same issue across the whole Lancashire. So back to your comment about the regional average. The whole of Lancashire is certainly suffering from a drop in that number, and from what we also understand from health studies and health investment, there is also an issue around the health impacts of people in work, affecting people being in work. So there's a lot of work going on in that area, and I think we just need to keep an eye on that. I don't think we've got the answers to all that in Chorley. I think a lot of it will come from wider settings and national settings. Any questions on that report? Any questions on that performance monitoring report from anybody? Like the screen's frozen at home, nobody's asking any questions. So no questions in the room, no questions at home. The proposal on that is that we note the recommendations at paragraph 2, that the report be noted. That's noted. Everybody happy to be noting it? Yeah. Okay, great. So that report is noted. Right. At this stage, we have to propose that the public and press are excluded while we talk about some commercially sensitive information for the next report. So I'll make the proposal that the public and press are excluded. All those in favour, sorry, somebody second that please. First, thank you, Adrian. All those in favour, please show. That's done. So if you could